If you're experiencing, we are recording this, so if you're not comfortable being on the screen, feel free to turn your camera off. If you are experiencing technical issues, try leaving and then rejoining the meeting. Um, all right, so I'm going to go ahead and introduce our speakers today. These guys and gal are from Numotion here in Utah, and I've known them for many years, and they're a great group of people that work collaboratively together and do a great job. So I'm going to introduce them. First, we have Bryan Cheney. Has specialized in wheelchair seating and positioning since 2010. After earning his degree in exercise science from BYU, he is passionate about helping individuals improve comfort, function, and access to their communities through thoughtful seating and mobility solutions. Christopher Beckstead. Chris has worked in the complex rehab technology since 2017 and became a certified ATP in 2020. He is dedicated to helping people maintain mobility and independence with extensive experience supporting individuals with ALS and other complex neurological conditions. Lastly, we have Kristen Ashley, PT, DPT, and ATP. Kristen is a physical therapist and ATP who moved from Massachusetts 10 years ago and has been serving the Utah community ever since. After working at the VA, she joined the Numotion team and now specializes in complex rehab, equipment, and custom wheelchair evaluations throughout the Salt Lake area. Thank you, Kristen, Bryan, and Chris, for presenting to us today. I'm confident you will share valuable insights with us. So, without further ado, I'll turn the time over to Bryan.
Thank you, Jared.
You're
Hello,
welcome.
everyone. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to present some things to think about for caregivers and those battling ALS around the power of positioning. So, when you think of where you're positioned throughout each day, the comfort, safety, and the daily function that you can expect and strive for. This is just where we're headed. We're going to talk about or switch this up and talk about comfort first, then function, then safety, share a few resources, and then do a question and answer at the end. We'll have Chris Beckstead start from here.
Thanks, Brian. I just want to point out that that wasn't 3 minutes of introduction. So if you want to take another two, um, hello, everybody. Appreciate the opportunity to spend some time with you today. Like Brian and yeah, said I get to talk to you about the comfort aspect of wheelchairs and power chairs. So when we my understanding is that people who are involved in our discussion today are people who either have ALS or are family members, caregivers supporting people with ALS. And my guess is that we've got people on the spectrum of recently diagnosed to been dealing with challenges related to this for quite some time. So some of these things that we go over are going to be a little high level. If you have questions regarding what we're discussing, what I discuss that are more specific to your individual needs, we'll try and address those later as best we can. But if you do have questions, of course, feel free to throw those in the chat. So for those of you who maybe are newer to the challenges related to ALS and why certain things get recommended and certain things don't, there is a broad spectrum of wheelchair equipment available to people. Everything from really simple standard manual chairs to really complex power chairs and everything in between. When someone is referred to a company like us, when they have ALS, when they are still newly diagnosed, walking, they may not be using any kind of mobility support cane or walker yet. We will still bypass basically all the recommended earlier equipment that we would use in a lot of other circumstances and start with something that's more complex that has the ability to be further customized for the individual down the road. We do that to make sure that we are meeting medical necessity based off of your diagnosis. Again, so that we can meet these needs as best as we can. and provide additional supports as needed, again, as best we can. So the images that you'll see here on the screen, this is what we would refer to, these are what we refer to as a group 3 multi-powered chair. All that means is it's a power chair that can help someone drive from point A to point B, but it has the ability to reposition. So the green chair here in the top left shows a chair in a tilted position. And we'll talk about what that means here in a moment. The top right shows a chair in a reclined position. Bottom left would be with legs elevated. The center purple would be seat elevation. And then the bottom right shows a chair in an anterior or forward tilted position. That particular image shows a chair in a true upright standing position. And we'll talk a little bit about kind of what's available and why and whatnot here as we go along. But each of these functions has a specific medical purpose and value that's assigned to them, that we justify during the process through our paperwork, based off of the ALS diagnosis and the individual's needs. So starting again, kind of in this top left, the value that you're going to get out of something with tilt is multifunction. Okay. Tilt is going to remove pressure from the buttock and move it to the back. What that does is it takes the pressure off of the bony points in your bum, reducing the risk of developing skin sores, pressure sores. Okay. That's a really big thing that we watch for in our industry. It's important that we do what we can to help prevent that. And tilt is a key factor for that. Tilt can also help with tone and spasticity control. But some of the lesser things that get discussed sometimes is just the general comfort that goes along with it. If you're like me, when I'm sitting in a chair, I do not like sitting perfectly upright at 90 degrees all day. This gets old and it gets uncomfortable. Being able to tilt back, even if it's just a little bit, man, that helps a lot. It can also help by tilting back, by pulling your chest open. Gravity helps do this. It'll help pull your chest open, so it can help with respiration, helping you breathe easier and better. It can help with circulation, and it can help with digestion as well. The recline, again, in that top right corner that you see there, in conjunction with tilt, is really important for that skin protection. We don't want people getting pressure sores. And when you spend all day sitting in a chair, you're much more likely to develop them. When you add in other complicating factors, things like muscle atrophy or incontinence, diet, quality of diet, transfer style, skin breakdown can happen very quickly and very easily, and it can become very serious. So being able to, again, to tilt, to take that pressure and move it from the bottom and move it to your back is really important. But then also being able to adjust those angles with recline can become really critical. I've had people where I thought that we had them on appropriate cushions and had gone through the tilt aspect of everything. And we were finding they were still getting sores and struggling to figure out why. And then realizing, oh, they need to recline just a little bit and it will solve everything. Like it truly can make a big difference there. The other things that recline is important for is ADL care. ADLs may be a new term for some of you. ADL means activities of daily living. In the medical sense, what that is referring to is the activities that are required like for everyday life and function. So basically going to the bathroom, going to your bedroom so that you can sleep, going to the kitchen so you can have a meal, transfers, things like that. So it's for ADL care. If you've ever tried to put pants on while sitting down, you know it's basically impossible. But if you're helping someone put pants on or off, being able to recline them into put them into a reclined position, excuse me, really is going to allow you to help with some of that ADL care as far as like getting dressed goes. Um, the other really critical part of that is catheter care. People who have intermittent catheterization, by being able to recline, it allows the anatomy of the body to be in a position that's easier for you to work with. Again, for that catheterization, especially if someone's doing it on themselves. Okay. Again, it can also help with that circulation, respiration, digestion. If you're upright 90 degrees all the time, we tend to get compressed in our core. So being able to open up and lean back can help with some things like that. Leg elevation. Uh, this this is about helping with swelling and positioning in the lower extremities. So again, if we tilt, recline, and elevate those legs, it works really well in concert with those things. You can get legs, your feet above your heart that way. Again, to help reduce swelling in your lower extremities. Um, Bottom right, if you see the image there, again, the green chair with the anterior tilt and standing. The picture can be a little bit misleading, and I'm just going to clarify that real quick. Chairs are capable of getting people into a standing position. They are not typically covered by insurance. Unfortunately, Medicare has not labeled standing as a medical necessity, and as a result, it's not covered by Medicare, and most insurances follow that suit. Um, there's always a few exceptions here and there, but it's not something that you should count on. There are, however, chairs that will still provide anterior tilt up to 10 degrees, where the manufacturers will include that in the cost of things, so we don't have to worry about trying to get additional justifications or additional funding in order to get those things covered. Anterior tilt is going to be really valuable to help with transfers. As people still have the ability to maybe stand, especially while supported, but they need help getting to that position, it's going to help them do that, right? Because you're going from a level position to something more like this. It's going to help you as a caregiver. It's going to save your back, helping you with transfers. It can be really important there. The seat elevation is important for a couple of reasons. The justifications behind that are to improve transfers, because again, it's higher to go it's easier, excuse me, to go from a higher surface to a lower surface, whether that's a slide board transfer or again, maybe doing a stand pivot or a squat pivot transfer where someone stands, is put on their feet and then moved over to a bed or another chair, whatever surface they're going to be sitting on. It's a lot easier to do that, again, from a higher surface. But the other thing that does is improve environmental access. When you're sitting down in a chair, there's a lot of your just everyday environment that is at or above shoulder height. So you end up doing this a lot. Um, and that's hard on your shoulders. And as muscles and things atrophy, maybe our range of motion, we just don't have the strength to get up into those higher positions. So being able to elevate means that you can still, the camera doesn't show this well, but you can reach over to more of a parallel position or even in again, slightly downward position onto countertops or sinks or light switches. The other thing that sometimes we don't always think about and talk about in regards to that is there is a dignity factor that goes along with this. Um, the picture that shows the seat elevated is made by a manufacturer called Quantum or Pride, and they refer to that function as eye level. And so, like I said, there is a dignity factor because rather than always looking at an upward angle at someone and people literally talking down to you, you can be at a much more eye level position. Um, and then if you're out in the community and if you're at a sporting event or a concert or whatever, you don't have to worry about trying to lean out into the aisle. You can literally raise up high enough in order to see things that are going on around you. Um, the all in all, when you put these factors together, the tilt, the recline, the leg elevation, that the seat elevation, and again that anterior tilt, there are a lot of things that help with comfort, whether just that general comfort, again, being tilted back just a little bit and opening up that back angle with it, and maybe kicking your feet out some. Man, just being able to reposition yourself and having the independence to do that and control that with your chair makes a huge difference. Um, because again, being upright at 90 degrees all the time just gets old, and it puts you at risk for a lot of secondary injuries and whatnot. We want to try and avoid as much as we can. Okay. If you don't mind the next slide, Brian. Um, with positioning, there's different supportive items that go onto the chair. Um, as you can see here in these images of just a backrest being positioned differently, um, a backrest does not have to be totally vertical when it's mounted on a chair. We can position it and we can adjust the depth position as well, and then the height. So we want to try and support someone's upper body as best we can. We want to get it close to the shoulder height, typically on a power chair. They're depending on the individual and their needs. A backrest may also have some additional contour to it. So we can wrap that more around the individual to help prevent them from leaning. Then you can see that more pronounced on that center picture here with the white back foam exposed. And there's varying levels of contour. Standard contour is about 2 inches, but it'll go really as deep as we need it to, depending on what we're looking at doing. There are backs also, I don't have an image of it up here, but there are backs that for people who have multiple skeletal deformities or challenges with their upper body, where we can individualize sections of the back in order to properly support them and try and help them be as comfortable as they can be. In addition to that, if you see on our image here to the right, that says posterior with fixed or swing away lateral supports. So we can put additional things there, whether usually it's meant for scoliosis. We're trying to get essentially on whatever side and squeeze to help realign the spine. But these can help. This isn't going to be necessarily the go-to item, but these can help again with leaning. Maybe someone has it like we need to support their shoulder on the outside again to help prevent them, or just remind them they need to sit up better as well as they can. Do that next slide for me, Brian. Along with our backs, probably should reverse this slide-wise, but that's okay. With our backs, I've got images of a couple different headrests here. Headrests are going to be really important, again, as muscles atrophy or body control decreases, to try and keep our head from going off to the sides or even falling forward. Being able to tilt someone back, it can help with prevent someone from coming forward, but it doesn't always. A lot of times though, you'll see the headrest, the first headrest there on the left, that is designed to come and wrap around the head to help prevent it from, again, side to side, just falling from side to side. It doesn't have to be in super tight contact. Maybe it's open, right? But again, providing additional support. That image in the middle shows a headrest with an occipital support, meaning it's going to come more underneath here. Again, helping stabilize the head and keeping it in a better position. As far as the helping prevent that forward collapse, which obviously is going to affect swallowing, breathing, and a number of issues. There's a number of ways to address that. Again, positioning is going to be really important. Having someone tilted back is probably going to be the most comfortable thing. But there are headrest design where we can put something underneath the chin. If someone has a trach, that can present unique challenges, and there are things that are designed to help with that. We can still put something underneath the chin that's got an open center to help with something like that. There are forehead straps. There's just a lot of options. Really what it comes down to is there's no one right fit for every body. I like to say that the more specific the need, the more specific the solution. And there's a lot of solutions available. And frankly, there's a lot of things that can be customized to the individual and their needs. And Yeah. For lower extremities, that's the image on the right. This is an image of a dual foot box. The idea behind this is if people are having a hard time keeping their feet in place on footrests, uh, their feet and their lower legs would fit inside of these. And there's different versions of this. We can do individual boxes. This is one unified box that would handle both legs. We can do individual boxes that are separate. We can do just one box. There are just padded items. Sometimes a strap is the right idea. Excuse me, to help with something like this. If you think about sitting on a chair, and then if your feet aren't supported underneath something, if you're just sitting on the edge of the chair like this, that puts a lot of pressure on your legs right behind your knees. Again, that gets really uncomfortable. That's going to cause circulation issues. That's going to cause potential sores and skin breakdown again. We want to get people properly supported. And one of the ways we do that is by making sure that their feet don't fall off of footrests. Again, these things can be padded. There's different materials that can be put onto them. The image here shows it's more of a closed material, meaning that it's going to be waterproof. It's easy to clean because you can just get it wet and wipe it off. But there's other things that have a breathable material. Down here in St. George, having something that in the southwest corner of Utah, it was 108 yesterday. Having your lower extremities trapped in something like this means you're going to be sweating a lot. It doesn't breathe well. So there's a lot of factors to consider there. But there are supports again for the head, the back. There's supports for the arms. We can do arm troughs and whatnot. It's a cupped armrest again to help keep the arm in place. That are padded with varying materials and covers for the same reasons that we would for anything else. We do want to make sure that people's arms are properly supported. This is something, again, that gets overlooked sometimes. When people have a hard time keeping their arm on an armrest and it tends to fall off either outside or inside the armrest, that shoulder gets pulled on a lot by gravity. And you end up with what's called a subluxed shoulder. I am not a doctor, but essentially and maybe Jared can correct me if I'm wrong, but essentially what's happening is the joint is starting to pull apart when you have a subluxed shoulder, and we don't want that. So getting something properly supported is going to be important. It doesn't have to be that arm trough, again, where it's that cupped armrest. There are pros and cons to things like that. But it could be that. It could be maybe just a block piece that gets put on the armrest to prevent things from falling out one way or the other, or even backwards. It could be a tray. Trays are great because they're less restrictive. You can do more with them. It provides a surface for people to work on and have activities with, to eat from. But again, it's not the right thing for every person. There's just a lot of solutions. Thank you, Bryan. Oh, yes. Arm trough picture on the right. And then on the left, before you get too far there, Bryan, back up one real quick. Sorry. Not only can the head start to collapse forward, but obviously we can start to collapse forward in our trunk. We don't want that to happen because, again, that compresses lungs, stomach, and causes some secondary complications. There are a lot of different things that we can do to help with that. Again, positioning is going to be critical. Being tilted with a little bit of recline goes a million miles for something like that. But also, we can do some straps to help keep people back open. This is a over the head X-style strap. There's varying sizes and types, backpack straps, Y straps, just one straight across the chest. Lots of options. Okay. Go ahead, Bryan. On this next slide, so as far as comfort goes, there's a lot of materials that go into cushions, backs, and all of these parts that we want to try and make sure are as comfortable for people as possible. A proper cushion for an individual is a really critical piece that goes into a power chair or wheelchair for somebody. As you can see here, we've laid out 4 different types of materials. There's foam, air cells, gel, and then what's called thermoplastic. The best way to describe the thermoplastic is something like um, uh, it's like a honeycomb shaped. The If you've seen the advertisements for like the purple mattress, it's that honeycomb shaped mattress. There's some value there, but the thermoplastic material tends to be really stiff and uncomfortable. It's not going to be something that we typically recommend for someone with ALS. The foam cushions might be something that we start with. They're stable. Um, there's varying types of foams that vary as far as like how soft they are, and how well they breathe or don't breathe, or how much pressure reduction or distribution you will achieve. Um, the shape of the cushion is affected by this as well. Sometimes we want a higher front end with a lower back end to prevent people from sliding forward. Um, Sometimes we need something that is one sided on like the right side is higher than the left because the pelvis is starting to tilt to one side. And we have what's called a pelvic obliquity. So we're trying to straighten things out. Um, Foam can be very comfortable. It can be a really good starting place for things. Um, Air is extremely comfortable. Who doesn't want to sit on air? Um, but there's pros and cons that go along with that. Uh, Air is much less stable. We find that people who struggle with uh, trunk control, core control, whether that's because they have a diagnosis like ALS, or maybe they have a spinal cord injury, where they're paraplegic, and again, maybe from navel down or diaphragm down, they don't have really great trunk control. What'll happen is someone will lean forward to grab an item off of a counter or shelf or whatever, and the air on the front end starts to compress down, and people will lose their balance and they fall out of the chair. So we want to avoid things like that. But air is excellent for physical comfort. It's excellent at pressure reduction. Um, the Some of the other cons, sorry that we'll go with this, I'm bouncing around a little bit, I apologize. They're high maintenance. You have to make sure you are checking it every day, really ideally every time before someone gets into the chair. Because if you have too much air in an air cushion, it's like you're sitting on a rock, and you're more likely to get a pressure sore. If you don't have enough air when someone sits down on it, they're going to bottom out, and all of a sudden they're sitting right on the seat pan of the power chair, which is metal, and they're going to get sores from that. It's going to be really uncomfortable. Um, the They can pop just like a balloon would, right? Especially during a transfer, if it's a hard transfer, we're putting people down really hard. Um, they can pop. If you get a pinhole in it, then you're in trouble. You got to find it and patch it. Um, if you go from uh, one elevation to a higher elevation, that affects the air pressure. You're probably going to need to let some air out, and vice versa. If you go from a higher elevation to a lower elevation, you're probably going to need to put some air in. So they're great, but they do have some drawbacks. Gel, especially gel and you're not going to see a cushion that's just gel 100%. It's going to be a hybrid cushion gel foam. Again, great for pressure relief. These are much more stable, but require a little bit of maintenance. They can pop as well, but can be very comfortable. You may start with one type of cushion and then need to swap it out for something that is better. Again, whether it's for that skin protection or for something that's more comfortable, more supportive, more restrictive, less restrictive. You'll hit the next slide for me, Bryan. The One of the options that we can consider is a custom molded seating system. These are really great, and have a lot of value for people that need a specific position or have a really hard time maintaining a position. Um, we we worry as ATPs when we put people in a chair about a number of things. One, of course, is like if it's not comfortable, people aren't going to sit in it. We want to make sure it's comfortable. But two, I've hit this multiple times already, but skin protection. We look at how well does a cushion reduce pressure issues. We can actually not just achieve pressure reduction, but when done properly, molded seating systems can have pressure elimination. So we don't worry about having pressure points underneath those bony prominences in our bum. Um, these can be very comfortable for people. One of the great things about this is when, again, done properly as an early intervention, it can help reduce the challenges we face later on with that thoracic collapse, that forward leaning collapse. Um, what this can do essentially is if this is a pelvis, we can lock a pelvis in place with a slightly forward tilted position. What that does with the spine is it can help, show it like this, sorry. It kind of puts you into a position like this, which means that you're going to be in a more upright position. Your body is going to be more self-supporting. Um, it isn't going to be 100%. You still are going to have to do things like tilt, but doing things like this can have a huge impact on people that live in chairs for years with little to no trunk control. Um, the downside to this though is you are in the one position. When you're in that chair, you can tilt because it doesn't change the shape of the chair, but recline is going to be whatever position you're molded in. And if you get out of that, it's not going to fit properly. So there's factors to consider. This may be the right thing with that mold and keeping people in this position and properly supported for as long as possible. And then let's say that they need to change their catheter. Being able to recline and change their catheter can still happen. It just means that you're not going to stay in this position for an extended period of time. It's going to be replaced because this isn't going to be comfortable. Okay. Next slide for me. So no, here's a couple things I want to also just touch base on. Um, Bryan and Kristen and I are considered wheelchair and seating experts. The certification that we carry takes a long time to achieve, and there's a lot to know, a lot to understand, and a lot to consider about what is being put underneath people to properly support them, to keep them safe and healthy and as independent as possible for as long as possible. Um, Nobody expects you as an end user or a family member or caregiver or support individual to be an expert in wheelchairs. We don't. Okay. Um, Suppliers, we want to help you. We want to answer your questions as best as we can. And we want to help support you. If something's not working right, we want to know about it. If someone is experiencing pain or they can only be in their chair for an hour because their body starts to ache and they get uncomfortable, they're getting skin breakdown, whatever, we want to know so that we can help because sometimes it's simple education. Again, we need to do a little bit of recline with that tilt. Sometimes it is a modification to the chair, but we want to come and look at it with you and talk it through and figure it out as best as we can. Again, the more specific the need, the more specific the solution. Okay. As suppliers, we do take it very seriously. ALS is it's unique in our world for what we deal with and how we handle things. The general process to get someone a wheelchair like this is you have to see a doctor who says, yes, you have a diagnosis of ALS and your mobility is compromised or is about to be significantly compromised and you need something. You have to see a physical and occupational therapist who does a detailed mobility evaluation and documents capabilities and limitations and how those things are affected in relationship to your diagnosis of ALS and why you need certain equipment and make those recommendations. And then our job is you have to see an ATP as a part of it to make sure that the equipment is actually set up appropriately. And we work with the doctor and the therapist and use the end user to make sure it's right. Once we do that, it normally goes to insurance for review and approval. And then once we have an approval, we can order equipment and then we can provide it. And that takes time. Really what that adds up to is that takes time. With a diagnosis of ALS, one of the positives that comes out of this is we can reverse the process a little bit. Yes, we're going to meet with you. Yes, you still have to do all those things, see the doctor, the therapist, and us. But once we have the idea of what we're doing for you, we will pre-order the equipment. Because fortunately, insurances take ALS very seriously, and they don't typically say no to what's being recommended. Um, there's always exceptions, but we can move this process a lot faster. Which uh, you know, in an ideal setting, we're looking at 45 days normally for people. We can reduce that down. I've done chairs for people with ALS in as little as 2 weeks. It We can move things along a lot quicker. Excuse me. Uh, Something else that we want to hopefully put your mind at ease for, excuse me, is that we are with you, whether it's Numotion or any of the other suppliers. We are with you for as long as you have and need this chair. Um, we want to make sure that you understand how to use it properly. We want to make sure that it fits you appropriately, is properly supportive, has the right kind of cushions and materials in it, and we want to adjust it and modify it as you need it. If something breaks on it, we are here to help you repair it. There's no expectation that you do that. Your insurance company that provides a chair will pay for the service and repairs at the same rate typically that they pay for the chair itself. Okay. So there should be some comfort there. Like, again, you're not alone. We're here to help and support you. Um, the biggest thing too, when people ask me about whether or not I like my job, like what's the best part about what I do, it's a pretty easy answer. The answer is I get to grant independence for people and improve their quality of life as the person in the chair using the chair. But honestly, it helps improve the quality of life and grants greater independence to the people in their immediate circle as well. Because if someone wants to go down to the kitchen and get a drink of water, they have the ability to go and do that. They don't necessarily have to rely on a caregiver to do that every time. They want to go walk the dog, they want to go to church, they want to go to the casino, whatever it is. They have the ability to be much more self-determinative and independent. They can move, they can adjust themselves. We want to reduce pressure off of the individual and the caregivers as much as we possibly can. Um, my recommendation to you as far as how else to make yourselves comfortable with this process and what is needed and all of these things, whoever it is that you work with, it doesn't, as much as we would love to sit here and say just choose Numotion, who we aren't the right fit for everybody, and we understand that. But whoever it is that you choose to work with, I would encourage you to make sure that it's someone that you feel comfortable talking to, again, asking lots of questions of, and gives you proper support and is responsive, because you're going to need them. But the better relationship that you can develop with your ATP, the better off things will be. Okay. The last thing I would encourage you to do, and I'm sure the reason that you are on here so you can do things like this and is get as much information as you can, but ask all the questions. Ask every little question. It doesn't matter if you think it's a dumb question or a great question, just ask. Um, the We will answer things as best as we can as ATPs and people in our industry. Um, we may not have every single answer. And in disclosure, there are things that we will do that we want to help, again, make things better. And sometimes our best plans and best efforts, they don't work. And then we have to go back to the drawing board and try again. But we want you to ask those questions, make your concerns known, because we want to be here to help you. Thank you so much. And I'll turn the time over now either to Bryan or Kristen.
Thanks, Chris. Real quick, any burning questions that you couldn't fit in the chat? Those who are participating? We'll turn the time over to Kristen, who will talk about function for about 10 minutes, and then we'll do some questions. No questions?
Bryan, we have one question. What is an ATP?
Kristen, you want to start on that one?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Kristen. I am a physical therapist, but I'm also an ATP. And an ATP is a assistive technology professional. So it is a certification that we get that focuses mostly on assistive tech, which is anything from like gait trainers and standers for pediatrics and activity chairs to manual wheelchairs, power chairs, and even assistive or augmentative communication devices. So it's basically anything that is customly ordered for people that will help them with their function and mobility and being as independent as possible in their lives. Okay, well, I'll kind of go through. I wanted to focus on how wheelchairs and seating can really assist people in function and maintaining their independence. We know that transitioning to using something for mobility, whether it's a walker or a manual chair or a power chair, and one of those significant Group 3 power chairs that Chris was talking about, can be a big emotional hurdle for a lot of people because it can show that there has been a decline. But truthfully, our main goal behind that is to maintain as much independence and control over your life. And truthfully, a well-fitting power chair really shouldn't be this gigantic big thing that takes away from looking at you as a person. It should allow you to integrate yourself in your community and in your environment. And so that's one of our biggest goals with seating and getting new assistive devices in general. I wanted to really focus on how seating can actually improve someone's function and also the available programming within what's called a Group 3 power chair that Chris brought up, and how that can help pretty much enable anyone to drive or manipulate their position even after they've lost a lot of or most of their mobility. We can go to the next slide, Brian. So I wanted to kind of talk about how there are typically kind of two onsets to ALS. We have one where most of our symptoms of kind of muscle weakness and atrophy starts in the limbs or like your arms and your legs first. And that can be an interesting problem with seating, is because a lot of people don't necessarily feel like they need a lot of support in their trunk because that's their strongest part. And they might be focused on much more support in their arms and their legs and helping positioning with that. But with seating, whenever you have that proximal stability with seating, it can allow you a lot more function in those weaker limbs. And then there's also that bulbar onset, which is typically you're having weakness in your facial muscles, your speech, your chewing, and also typically your neck and more trunk, and then your arms. And so those different onsets can make us look into providing seating and chairs and things in different ways. But a lot of the same principles are always going to apply, in the fact that we always want to stabilize someone proximal so that way they can access their environment a lot easier because they're not focusing on balancing and staying in their chair when they're driving on rough surfaces or even just driving around their home and going over thresholds and looking around. We can go to the next slide. So first off, as I was kind of saying and touching on what Chris was saying, seating is a really large part of maintaining function, and being able to provide support around someone's trunk, even if they have pretty good trunk control. You'll notice even in the car when you want to put lumbar support, contouring a backrest to or like a cushion to your body is going to be a lot more comfortable, but it's also going to keep you from having to shift and move and try to stay still, especially when you're trying to do something that has fine motor tasks, like driving a power chair, trying to keep your hand on a joystick, or trying to keep your eyes centered on where you're going, different just access to things. The other thing that helps is once you've stabilized your trunk or different parts of your arms and everything like that, you can use weaker muscles. As a PT, when we test strength, we usually test things without gravity and against gravity. And it's always going to be much harder to move against gravity than stabilizing whatever joint it is. And you can maybe still move your biceps or your arms in ways that you wouldn't be able to if you weren't supported at a closer joint. And so being able to provide a really comfortable backrest that either has laterals that support you on the left or a deep contour that can wrap around you, good lumbar support, or doing that custom mold that basically can provide you your personal turtle shell and those arm troughs. It can basically provide that stability proximally and allow you to possibly utilize your hands or your arms and your shoulder muscles for longer, or stabilizing the pelvis and using your knee, your strength in your hips that can go in and out to maybe hit buttons and things like that. So being able to kind of advocate for yourself and your care and your family members, that even though they might be strong in these places, they might not be strong all day, or if they stabilized in this spot, they could use more of and be more functional. And so sometimes you might have someone that recommends, oh, we just need a flat back because you can sit up straight. Even if, yes, you might get weaker in the future, but even right now, you might be able to do a lot more if you had that more support in your seating. You can go to the next slide, Bryan. It can, as I said, it can improve your access and your ability to control your environment in your chair. So these are a couple of what's called alternative controls. And this allows pretty much anyone to keep driving their chair. You might not have hand control, or you might just have that little bit. On the left, there's what's called like a mini proportional joystick. So we have tiny, tiny joysticks that require almost no movement from someone's finger or lip, as in the, or chin, as in the second picture. And we can place those pretty much anywhere on the chair. You can drive with your foot, you can drive with your hand, you can drive with your chin, your lip, your tongue. And the big thing with that is that you need to make sure that they stay consistently where you stay consistently where you need to be able to access that. There's also what are called switch drives, where you can drive with just movements of your head. You can drive with your eyes and just looking where you want to go. And being able to keep yourself in a position that you have access to this allows pretty much anyone to drive safely. There are people out there who are never safe in a power chair, whether they're fully functional or not. But having good seating and then knowing that there are options, and just the power chairs that you see driving down the road that just have a standard joystick can be modified to pretty much anyone. We can go to the next slide. And on that point, not only can you drive with pretty much any portion of your body, you can also manipulate a lot of your environment to allow you to function at work for a little bit longer, doing hobbies, participating, hanging out with your family, but also being able to be alone for a little bit longer, which can be necessary when you have to have people around you all of the time. So not only can you drive with your eye gaze, but you can get into your powered seating with or even without a switch. We have very lightweight switches that you can put next to a cheek, where you can stick your tongue into your cheek or by your knee, or you can have your chair revert back to a menu screen whenever you're not driving. So that way you can choose your seating and change your position on your own instead of having a family member hoist you back into your chair after you feel like you've been sliding. And that allows just a little bit of comfort throughout the day and control over where you are and your comfort and what you do during the day. And then we can utilize those alternative controls and switches that we've set up that you have access to with your chair to control other things like your phone. So that way you can answer your phone or make calls, check Instagram with utilizing what are called environmental controls in your joystick. So most of the joysticks that we would recommend for someone who has ALS is what's called an expandable control. And that allows us to utilize any type of drive control, any joystick or switch or anything like that to drive your chair, but it also allows us to connect to Bluetooth to your phone, use infrared to change the channel on your television. They are starting to make it so we can program switches to change profile, not only from driving to your seating to your PlayStation or your computer, and then you can use your joystick to navigate your computer and playing a video game. So you have something to occupy your time when people are out and doing things. And it can allow a lot of options. And this can be very overwhelming when you get a power chair, because this is typically your first interaction with power chairs. And so you end up having to learn a lot that first day. But know that we can come back. We can come back. We can show you how to use your power chair, show your caregivers how to drive it, the safety features, and then let you be for a little bit. And I think it's always really good to have a follow-up 2 weeks or so in the future, just to check if you're comfortable, if you need to make any adjustments, but also now that you're comfortable and you're not having to absorb all this information, see what else it can do for you. And I think that's a really good thing, because a lot of people, I've delivered chairs and like they might not be able to drive it, but it's a much easier way for their caregiver to drive. And I'm like, that's great. And I'm not going to overwhelm you today about it, but we can enable you to have full control over it. And I think it's just knowing that we are there for you, and we can come back as many times as you need to make sure that the chair is comfortable, but also that it's actually meeting your needs at that moment. There is also just a lot of resources out there. I put a link down here for the how to connect your phone to your wheelchair joystick. And it's a lot of people who are in wheelchairs who've gotten really techy and love all this stuff, and can be really fun to watch. And they can show you and walk you through all these different things. So even if we can come out and show you, it can be a little bit more fun to see it in the real world. YouTube's everyone's friend. And then another thing that can really help with just function and access to your environment is just accessories on your chair. I truly love tray tables. I feel like they've gone out of style in a lot of ways. For opting for arm troughs and things that can help position. But a lot of the times, especially when you have weaker shoulders and we have intact feeling, and you can feel sometimes that pull on your shoulders, keeping your arms in one position can be uncomfortable. And trays are an awesome thing where you can have your arms on there, but you can pivot them in over your lap or shift just a little bit in that gravity minimized plane. And it can provide you access and view of a lot of things. You can get suction cup water bottles on there. You can have your phone, you can have your computer, you can have your communication devices all right there. I've had clients who utilize mouse sticks to navigate opening their doors or getting to their computer. So it can be a comfortable accessory, but also a functional one. And then you can always have your arm props for afterwards when you don't want that tray on there. There's also a lot of mounts that we can mount communication devices. That's a mount that you can mount for like an eye gaze device, but also for tablets, phones. I've listed a couple links here for drinking solutions. A lot of people utilize what's called Lockline, which is this, to the picture on the right, this linked tubing that can be manipulated to any access point, so you can make it so you can just turn your head a little bit and drink. This is the giraffe bottle utilizes that, and it's a full system, but you can buy the Lockline on Amazon for pretty cheap, and people utilize it with hydration packs. just hanging on the back of their chair so they have access to things. And then I also listed the accessibility of wheelchair mounts for RAM mounts. They actually have a whole division for wheelchair mounts, and you can get track mounts so it can fit pretty much anywhere pretty seamlessly instead of just clamping. And I have to say, if anyone does outdoorsy driving and four-wheeling, these mounts stay put pretty well. And so we definitely usually recommend these. And just know that there are a lot of accessories that one are on Amazon if you can put in your chair brand. So like Thermobile, Quantum, Quickie, a lot of companies or just makers will 3D print things that can fit perfectly in there. Etsy is also a really awesome place to look for accessories to help that can be cute and functional. And a lot are made by wheelchair users that realize that normal backpacks don't necessarily fit on the back of a chair, or you might want to have a different pretty oxygen holder or accessible bags and things like that. So it can be a really good resource out there, and just know that people make things. And overall, just let us help. We are constantly updated and trained on the new technology and accessories, and that change can happen in the time that you have a chair and need. And so you can always shoot us a text and be like, hey, this is an issue. Do you have any solutions for this, or resources that are new on the market that might have come up since we last talked? And then just know that we can always come back and talk about all of these things at a later date when it's not as overwhelming as when the first day that you get your chair. And so just know that use your vendor as a resource. And we are in this for helping people and getting to see people as functional as possible. And so just know that there's a lot of technology out there and people that want to help.
Thanks, Kristen. We can move into the question and answer portion of the rest of the time that we have here. Jared, are you going to lead that and we'll just respond?
You bet. Feel free to take your mic off if you want to ask any questions to the Numotion staff today. We had a few comments, but I think we triaged those. I think it's very important to communicate with that vendor that you're using. And you guys need to know that you are free to choose whatever vendor you'd like. So insurance is somewhat driving that decision, but you do have the choice. So feel free to search out those companies beforehand before buying a wheelchair. Check with us, your care coordinators. We do have some of those attachments, water bottles, things like that we can donate out and let you try before purchasing. So keep that in mind. But do we have any questions or comments at this time?
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead, Ed.
The two pedals that you put your feet on the wheelchair.
Yep.
Sometimes I'm still ambulatory.
Mm-hmm.
I can still walk and get out of the chair. Well, sometimes when I bend over to pull those pedals up to walk, I almost fall out of the chair. So how do you get those pedals up without bending over?
Kristen, do you want to answer like with the foot plate elevation technology?
Or yes, sometimes with your power chair, depending on the company that it's made from or has the ability to, you can actually lower those foot plates all the way to the ground. And so you actually just stand up on them and get up. That's one way. Often I recommend people getting like a little grabber, which just has like a hook on the end of a stick, and you can kind of tuck it next to you and then utilize that instead of leaning all the way forward just to grab something and pull up. But typically I would say, do you know what brand your chair is?
Pre-mobile.
So there should be a way to, on your power seating, to highlight basically the calf pads, and it should be able to kind of drop down pretty far, and then you usually can stand up. It might have to be programmed to allow them to get all the way to the ground. But that can be a way for people to avoid having to flip up. I am ready to invent a way to power flip up your foot plates. It has not been on the market yet. But
Okay.
Be a great idea. I have seen people tie like a shoelace to the foot plate, and to the armrest or something to help pull that up. Your vendor may need to put a little connection piece on both of the foot plates so that they come up together. But that's an option I've seen in the past. Just be careful not to give yourself a trip over that shoelace.
Okay.
Any
Cool.
other questions, you guys?
I have a question.
Okay.
Is it okay, or am I able to make adjustments to the chair? As I'm a caregiver, my husband has been diagnosed with ALS, and as his needs are changing, he needs some adjustments to those chairs. Like, for example, the headrest. The headrest right now, it's in a position that is useless. It's actually a danger because if he is backing up or something, you know, chips the wall or things like that. And when he's trying to recline in order after, visit to the bathroom or something, I'm trying to put his clothes back on, the rest, as he reclines, he doesn't have that rest support. So is that something that I'm available, or am I able to make that adjustment? That as I see it, that he needs, or is that something that somebody from Numotion needs to come and make the adjustments? That I need to contact someone from Numotion itself, or can I do that? Is that, I don't know.
Great question, Elsa. I would recommend doing what you're comfortable with. So just simple Allen head tools, you can sometimes make those adjustments. That's great. They're meant to be adjusted. Anytime you're like, I feel like I'm getting outside of my comfort zone, bring us into the adjustment and we're happy to help out.
Okay. Thank
And
you.
some people get very comfortable. Kristen actually lived with a gentleman, supported him in his wheelchair, and you can get really comfortable. You actually can become kind of professional at wheelchair adjustments if you do it all the time and it works out well. So definitely lean on us as much as you need though.
Okay. I just didn't know if there was anything liability or whatever for the power chair.
I wouldn't
Pretty
I wouldn't
much-
get out any drills, any
yes.
drill bits or anything like that.
For sure. I'm learning how to use tools too. So,
Good job. Sorry, Kristen.
Typically, it's comfort. If you feel comfortable, and you can always ask your vendor to show you how to adjust something correctly, and so you can make those fine-tune adjustments. We also have a remote service that you can video chat with, but you can also typically video chat with your vendor just through FaceTime, and they can help walk you through adjustments if you have questions.
Oh, okay. That's good to know.
One last question here from Gail. Gail said, we noticed that some footrests are short, therefore broken toes when walls contact happens. So sometimes they do come short, and that's really just an error on the dealer's part. I do have footrests that we can switch out often, but talk to your dealer if you feel that that's an issue. Just talk to your vendor and see if you can get some longer footrests to prevent that.
Yeah, even some companies don't necessarily make longer ones, like Permobiles, I think are set at 9 inches.
That's
I would say
true.
most people's shoes are around 11 to 12. But you can get inserts that can go on top of those that have hard ABS plastic that can stick out farther if that's a bigger issue, or you can put on a flip box or something that can kind of protect your feet a little bit.
There's a thing that goes on top of it that includes your toe in there.
Okay, you guys, if there are no other questions today, we'll end this meeting. Thanking Numotion for joining us today and presenting very good information. You guys, thank you for sharing your knowledge and a few minutes of your time. Everyone else, thanks for joining us today. We appreciate you supporting ALS United, And I look forward to seeing you at our next educational event. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to your care coordinator with ALS United, and we can help you triage problems or anything that's going on. Again, thanks for being here, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
See you all.
Thank you.